Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray and Craig Burley here in the studio. He's made it. We're going to see if he can make it through the whole show without having a coughing fit. But we're wishing the best. We're hoping that won't happen. Wish you the best. Definitely wishing me the best. Yeah, big game this weekend coming up for Manchester City as they will be taking on Chelsea as we take a look at the Premier League top half standings right now. And obviously this game following on from the departure of Enzo Maresca as Chelsea coach. Let's welcome in our guys to talk more about this. We've got Stuart Robson, we've got Jan Åge Fjørtoft as well, and we're going to start by showing you the predictions of the panel as well. Everybody's going for a Manchester City win, which probably doesn't come as too much of a surprise, given everything that's going on at Chelsea and the fact that Manchester City are at home here. But why is it 2-0 for you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think City had a tough game at Sunderland and maybe can consider themselves a little unlucky in the second half with some of the chances and one or two good saves and some great defending and so forth. And Sunderland are where they are because they're a really physical team and they pressed and they made it difficult. But it wasn't a terrible performance. And I think City have found, they are in a decent run of form. They won at Nottingham Forest. It wasn't an easy game for them. Ryan Cherki's been in great form. Haaland had a difficult game the other night. I thought the Sunderland centre-halves handled them particularly well. They were very physical with them. But I just feel that this Chelsea team will be open. It's at home. And City will have one or two injuries. I think Gonzalez went off. We saw Rodri come on. The game changed when Rodri came on because he really had this element of control about linking the play up and passing the ball. And I think if he starts aligned to Cherki and Haaland at home, and even if Maresca was in charge of Chelsea, my prediction wouldn't have changed. So I can see City continuing to pile the pressure on Arsenal, keep asking the questions, and I don't see Haaland having another quietish night like he had at the Stadium of Light.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the ideal time, is it, Jan, to be facing Manchester City for Chelsea right now?
It's not. Having said that, there's everything to win now because they can't hide behind Maresca now, so they have to turn up. But to add to what Craig was saying about Manchester City, if you asked them before Christmas, you're going to Nottingham Forest, difficult game. I was there. There was a fantastic football. I think Nottingham Forest played very well. And then it went to Sunderland. It's loud, it's intense, there is so much energy. And come away with 4 points in these two games. I don't pretend to know Pep Guardiola, but I felt after that win at Nottingham Forest, he was very relieved that they could compete even on that level. And this game at home against Chelsea will fit them better. I think that it's going to be a clear Manchester City win.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Jan Åge Fjørtoft, you were at the City ground.
Were you there as well?
No, my whole family were there, and I was sat in my son's house. You could have thrown a stone over the Trent to me. I could have been there in 1 minute to see you. You didn't even tell me you were there. Oh, my God.
What a missed opportunity, Jan.
It was a missed opportunity. There was a light in my Christmas up to see Craig. I so regret that.
Our heat map of going round all the pubs in Nottingham would have been fantastic.
It would.
I was there. I was 200 yards away.
So near yet so far. Rob, I want to talk to you about Enzo Maresca here, if I may. Do you think he brought any of this on himself?
Well, first of all, I think Jan made the right decision not calling up Craig. But yeah, I think Maresca did bring it on himself. I mean, once you start questioning the board and start saying that it's the worst 48 hours and I haven't had the backing of the board, I haven't had the backing of the medical staff and all this sort of stuff, there's only going to be one winner, and that's the board. And Craig, I think, has mentioned it before, that if you are a manager like Guardiola, you can say those sort of things. If you're a manager at the top of the game, and you've been a manager like that for many, many years, you can say those things. But you can't say it in Maresca's position. The crowd weren't particularly happy with the style of football. The players, I'm not sure, have bought into everything that he does. And certainly the board have got their way of doing things. And he's challenged that. And once you start challenging that and talking about going to other clubs, you're always going to be the first person to go. And that's what's happened with him.
And it's interesting.
When you
I'm just saying.
Go on, yeah.
No, I'm just saying that it's a valid point that Maresca, we think because he's the manager of Chelsea Football Club, he's an experienced manager. We've talked about that by Alonso before. We think that Alonso has been a manager for 10 years. I mean, Maresca hasn't been around for a long time. So I think that he overplayed his card. But having said that, what we're seeing at the moment is also to own the truth. that Chelsea, you can see where Chelsea want to spin the story. You can see what Camp Maresca want to spin the story. So I think we should be a bit aware now where the truth lies.
Yeah, let's get to those points, though, about Maresca's side of the story and some of the reports that we're seeing.
But the other thing is here, right? Now, the list of candidates, I don't want to go on get too far ahead, but the list of names is quite embarrassing for Chelsea Football Club. I mean, really and truly, if they wanted to make a mark, right? I mean, look at that. I mean, Areola is a really good manager, but it's not a good time for him. They are having a tough time. Bournemouth have fallen off a cliff after a great start to the season. Oliver Glasner, we know, is solid as a rock. Absolutely rock solid. I'm not dispelling that whatsoever. But you know, if you're Chelsea Football Club, and I'm just throwing this out there, I'm not saying this is going to happen because it won't happen, but if you want to make a statement and you have a young team that are vibrant and energetic and can play a pressing game, you go and make Jurgen Klopp, for example, just for an example, you go and make him and say, give me 3 or 4 years, Jurgen. Here's a fortune. Give me 3 or 4 years. Because he could come in. That would be a statement. He could come in. Somebody like him could come in with his experience, his history, his success, and take his style and put it on not an aging team, but a young team. A team that could play the pressing game, that could play the high intensity. That's a statement. Not this sort of bunch of names that's on there, as good as some of them are. It's not a statement. In fact, it's quite embarrassing. And on the other side of it, Kay, it's Enzo Maresca. Who cares? I mean, come on. It's Enzo Maresca. Pep Guardiola hasn't walked out. Carlo Ancelotti hasn't walked out. Jose Mourinho in 2005 and 6 and 7 hasn't walked out. It's Enzo Maresca with a Club World Cup and a conference.
Can I just come back to something you said there, Craig?
How many coaches would put up with being dictated to?
Well, hold on. Didn't Enzo Maresca want a new contract? Didn't he use Man City and Juventus as a tool to attempt to get a new contract? So if all these things behind the scenes were the issue, the medical staff telling people who could play, telling people who could sign, if that was a real issue, why is he asking for a new contract?
Yeah, but that's now we are discussing the truth now. I mean, we should be aware what's truth in here. What it will give you 100% right, Craig, is that all the money people behind Chelsea Football Club are wondering how they earn their money. Did they earn their money with a great business, give the CEO jobs to inexperienced people? No, I don't think so. And now they could do that again. And I don't get it. Yes, I get it that they have 5 sport directors, 2 leaders with Stanley and Stewart being a charge of them. I understand that it fits them to have a weak manager. I do understand that, but I think that Chelsea at the moment is making them laughing stock of themselves. Chelsea used to, when Abramovich was there, they used to have a new managers all the time, but they were top managers with a lot of experience. That is a big difference.
Robbo?
Yeah, Jan is absolutely right. The reason that the list of managers that you just saw put up there, that they're not the top managers in the world, is because the board and the CEOs and the sporting directors, they want to take control of that manager. They don't want somebody like Jurgen Klopp who will say, no, I'm not sticking for this. This is what I'm going to do. This is the style of football I'm going to play. This is who I'm going to pick. And if you don't like it, you can get rid of me. So they want somebody they can control. And that's why they're looking at some of those names that you've just seen up there.
And that's why they'll be, for quite some time, the also-rans. That's why they'll be piping on about Club World Cups and nonsense like this. You know, it's if you want to get back amongst the elite, right? You have to be prepared to have managers that have a combative element about them. You can't have weak managers and expect success. Guardiola's not weak. Ancelotti's not weak. Klopp's not weak. Conte's not weak. And whether you like Antonio Conte or not, he's had great success at a lot of clubs. And he's also had a lot of fights. And he's walked out and whatever's happened. But he's not weak. He's not, and he knows what he wants. If Chelsea want to continue to hire managers that are nothing more than puppets, then their success will be very, very limited, no matter how much they spend.
Quickly, Jan.
Just quickly, I will also mention Unai Emery. I mean, you can see how far you can take a team when you have a proper, good, experienced coach. I mean, Emery would have sorted out Chelsea very quick. He would have sorted out Manchester United very quick. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Now, as for Manchester City, obviously the hosts in this game, we know that they were frustrated by Sunderland in their last outing. However, we heard Craig talking about the difference that Rodri made, and it's something that Pep Guardiola discussed as well after the game. He said he changed the game. He proved in 45 minutes that he is the best in his position. Football is about the players. In the build-up, we struggled, and with Rodri, we struggled less. He broke the lines, we moved better. And 1 year and a half without him, we missed him a lot.
I hope Nico Gonzalez is not reading that. Who's actually done not a bad job.
But he came on for him, obviously, at half-time.
Yeah, he got a bit of an injury in the first half. He's actually done a decent job in there. But it's a bit like, you know, one or two other, you know, there's several players around world football at the moment. They're irreplaceable. You know, you get people to come in, they'll do a good job, but nobody really does what Rodri has done for Man City in Spain. And when he came on, you know, in a very difficult match, a very physical match at the Stadium of Light, where Sunderland really pressed, particularly in the first half, which he wasn't on, but particularly for the first hour, they really pressed. Some of his touches, I was watching, and you know, there was one point, Matheus Nunes played a ball into him, around about the 75th minute mark or something like that, from the right back area. And he's under so much pressure. He took this first touch that just took the press out of play and played the ball around the corner. He is a quality, I'm stating the obvious, he's a quality operator. The problem is he's continuing to fight this way back to full fitness from a really nasty injury, picking up these little knocks as he goes, and that's difficult to shake off. So the more game time he gets, the better. But yeah, he was a joy to watch when he came on.
How important is it to have him back for you, Jan?
Oh, very important. I mean, to add to that is that he's like the conductor in the team. I mean, you just have to look at his stats. I didn't buy the whole thing that Manchester City had a bad season last season just because of Rodri's absence. No, I didn't take that. But to have him back as you do now, I mean, he's a quarterback. He's the guy that you can give the ball to. Fantastic first touch. Great passes, comes in there, and just his presence. And I think that he can turn into be the best signing of this transfer window. To get Rodri back for Manchester City, wow, that is a statement signing, quote, quote.
How much does it boost their title bid, Robbo?
Oh, it boosts it a lot, but he has to stay fit and he has to be fully fit, because when we saw him come back in previous matches, in his long comeback, he had one or two injuries and he couldn't perform at the same sort of level. He didn't look quite as sharp, but when he came on the other day, he had what you need to have for Manchester City, control of the game. And that's what they did for the second 45 minutes, and that's what he brings to a Guardiola side. If he plays at his very best, Manchester City are going to be right up there alongside Arsenal.
I think we saw in that game that, you know, City are susceptible at times to that ball over the top. We saw it for Brobbey with Diaz, got himself in a bit of trouble. Yeah, but he had a hold of Diaz's shirt. The referee never saw it. But that ball over the top can be a problem. I think we also saw at times, particularly in the first half, the weakness now and again in the full-back areas where they don't have full-backs. It's attacking midfielders that are playing there, and Matheus Nunes and Nico O'Reilly. And I think we saw, if memory serves me right, in the first half, the lack of experience from O'Reilly, who's a fantastic player, getting tight and getting outdone by a 1-2 very simply in the first half. And that's just because he's not a fullback. So these are the little areas where teams can try and exploit, where, you know, Nunes and O'Reilly, they're not naturally in that position. I thought Sunderland did a decent job with that in the first half. But of course, all those things thus far pretty much have been negated by the form of Foden, the form of Cherki, the form of Haaland, and one or two others. And it's going to be interesting to see whether that can continue in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and as we know, the leaders right now are still Arsenal, and they lead as it turns into a new year as well, something that they found themselves doing in the past and then gone on to not win the title. And that goes back before Arteta's time as well, of course. Well, he was asked about it and he said, let's break it. That's what they transmit every single day. When they're with us training in every match, you can see their desire, you can see the energy that they put in. how much they want it, and that's what we need. That's still 5 months to go, and take it day by day. Enjoy that process of being where we are and go for it. So why might 2026 be different for Arsenal with this record, Craig?
Well, the squad, the chasing pack. While City are better, it's not City of 2 or 3 years ago. Liverpool have fallen off the cliff. I don't see any way back for them if you look at their recent form, including the game against Leeds United at home. There is nobody really else, as Chelsea have got 2 wins in 9. So the chasing pack are not quite as strong, although City have perked up. There is no doubt about that, and they are not. Don't look like they're going away, but they're not quite that frightening force of 2 or 3 years ago. So there is that. However, when a team don't go away, it's still a nagging doubt. But when you add that to the squad that Arsenal have in depth from midfield, there was no Rice against Villa. They coped, and that, as you should. You can't be complaining. You're going to lose key players, but you've got Moreno, you've got Zubimendi, you've got Odegaard, you've got others. So they cope with that. And they've also done it thus far. And this is something we touched on a couple of days ago. City are where they are with one of the informed strikers in European football, and Erling Haaland. Arsenal are where they are with being in the same position they were in the last 2 years, with a number 9 who still isn't quite hitting the straps. Whether it was Gabriel Jesus, whether it was Kai Havertz, Mikel Merino's did a good job. They spent the big money on Gyökeres, and they're not in this position because Gyökeres has got 20 goals. They're in it because they've played as a team. Now, if Gyökeres, and they can find a way to get him the goals that he did at Sporting, and that's a big if they can do that in the second half of the season, I think they're going to be unstoppable. But thus far, they've not, the way they've played to the strength of that striker. And that's going to be one of the doubts going into the second half of the season. Because if he scores 15 or 20 in the second half of the season, they will win the title. But if he doesn't, and he hasn't so far, then the others are going to have to chip in, which they have done pretty well.
What do you think of what Craig's saying here, Robbo, with that Gyökeres situation, how it's going to unravel, and if he's going to come good for Arsenal?
At the moment, he's receiving the ball quite a long way from goal, which I don't think is where he wants to receive it. I think he wants to receive it another 10, 15 yards up the field. And we're not seeing him make as many runs down the side because they've got midfield players making those runs. They've got wide players in those positions, and they're not playing those sort of balls. I don't think they have to play to his strengths because they're top of the table. They're doing what they do well at the moment. What he needs to do is make sure that when it does come into his areas, he performs at his very best. And I think the difference between playing at Sporting and playing for Arsenal now, I think the defenders are that little bit quicker, that little bit stronger, and they haven't given him the room to work his magic, which he did in Portugal.
But if the others, Robbo, don't, if the goals kind of dry up a little bit and from Saka or Moreno or Trossard or, Eze or if they just sort of dry up a little bit, you're now looking at your striker, right? You're now looking at this guy that you've brought in to try and win these games, and that's where the big question will be in the second half of the season. I don't mean this badly. This sounds strange. He's a goal scorer. There's no facet of his game that I'll look at and think he's brilliant at that. But he's been at Sporting a brilliant goal scorer, and when he's not scoring goals, the rest of his game is just okay. Hustle, bustle, backing into defenders, running the channel, as Robbo said, maybe making some good runs in the box. And if we're being honest about it, thus far, although Arsenal are top of the league, he does look like a little bit of a fish out of water in this Arsenal team. It's not his fault, the kind of player he is.
What do you think of what Craig's saying there, Jan?
No, I think it's right, because for me, the definition of a great goal getter is the one who makes that 1-0 goal, makes the winner out of nothing. I mean, like Erling is doing all the time. I mean, let's put it another way. Will the 4 players that Arsenal can play up front score more goals than Erling Haaland? I think that will be decisive. That means also that Manchester City is a bit more vulnerable, because if Erling then get a spell, if he gets an injury, I mean, they will be limited. But you need to get Rodri back. That will make an advantage, because Arsenal got a lot of alternatives in midfield. It's going to be interesting now with all the players coming back. I see Arsenal be stronger defensively, because City were all over the place. They've sorted it out a bit, you have to be said. Goalkeepers quite equal. Correa is good. Donnarumma, we know is good. So it's going to be a matter of goals. But listen, I mean, for me, it's now for Arsenal to lose. because Arsenal are 4 points ahead. They have better recruitments this season than Manchester City. Let's see what's happening in January. If they get Semenyo in, you maybe get more goals, you get more assists from the wings. But for me, it's now advantage Arsenal Football Club.
Advantage Arsenal Football Club, says Jan right now. When we get the panel's predictions, though, I'm not too sure that is how you see it, Jan. You think that they're going to drop points here against Bournemouth?
I think they will, because I think there are games like this. I was talking about Manchester City going to Forest, going to Sunderland, get away with 4 points. And these are the crucial ones. I mean, great win against Aston Villa. First half, a bit more equal, maybe advantage Aston Villa. But I think this is a test. So I was predicting that my two fellow teammates here will go for an Arsenal win, so I go for a draw.
You don't agree, Craig?
No, Bournemouth had a great, honestly, it was just such a great start to the season. Basically, they lost Zabanya to PSG, lost Houston to Real Madrid, lost Kirkes to Liverpool, amongst one or two others. And yet, at one point early in the season, I think they were in the top 4, which is quite amazing. But since then, there's been quite a big drop-off in their form. And so I just think Arsenal are going to be too strong. I think they'll grind them down in the end and get the result.
You too, Stuart?
Yeah, I saw Bournemouth play at Brentford, only not the last game, the game before. They were better at Chelsea, they got a 2-2 draw at Chelsea, but the game against Brentford was one of the worst performances I've seen for a long time. Defensively, they were all over the place, they didn't compete in midfield. Physically, they were outfought by a Brentford side, and I think Arsenal would do that to them. I think it's going to be a comfortable win for Arsenal. They've been there before and done exceptionally well. I think the first game of the season a couple of years ago, they won 4-0. I think it could be one of those sort of performances.
Yeah, OK. So all the boys will be back with us on Extra Time, and you can stay up to date with everything that they have to talk about every single day over on our ESPN FC YouTube channel. Another game coming up this weekend is Fulham against Liverpool, and everybody is predicting more dropped points for Liverpool. However, Stuart Robson and Jan Agerfjordhoff have been a little bit harsher than you, Craig. Stuart, you say Fulham are going to win this one.
Yeah, I've seen nothing from Liverpool over the last 2 games against 2 teams down at the bottom, Leeds United and Wolves. Yes, they beat Wolves, but they were fairly fortunate in the end because they didn't play particularly well against Wolves, and Wolves outbattled them in the second half and made lots of chances. So I don't see Liverpool playing particularly any better against Fulham. Fulham got a good draw against Crystal Palace. They've got some decent players. They're enjoying a good run of form. Jimenez is starting to get back to form. Even Smith Rowe is starting to play quite well, their biggest signing. And Liverpool show no sort of creativity at the moment. There's no cohesion. They've still got 1 or 2 problems defensively, and they're lacking confidence. And I don't think at the moment the manager knows how to sort it out. So I see a Fulham win.
OK, now Jan, yesterday on the show, Craig had heard about your tweet, your I told you so tweet about Florian Wirtz, what you'd had to say about Florian Wirtz anyway. But yeah, it was a tweet
I thought it was
to begin with.
I thought it was on the
and then we'd asked him about it on the show, and so he'd brought it up on the show. So maybe it's a good job you didn't meet each other in Nottingham, because I don't think he was going to be too favourable as to what you had to say. You, Jan, said, I'm not one for what did I tell you, but what did I tell you? He will turn into one of the best around. And of course, this was Florian Wirtz's performance in the Wolves game. So defend your tweet, Jan.
Well, first of all, they played a mighty Wolverhampton, who kind of went to Old Trafford and took a point. Fantastic. Got their 3rd point in the Premier League. I think Florian Wirtz were very good in that game. It was also very good against Real Madrid. That was my only defense after the Leeds game, because against Leeds, there was something about Florian Wirtz that I haven't seen before. I've seen him, now I'm on the weak side of my argument. I think against Leeds, his decision-making was terrible. I think he was very slow on the ball. That's the first time I've seen that, because I'm used to see his head like back in the days when Gerrard and Lampard were all over the place to anticipate what was going on the pitch. A couple of 3 times in that game, he was all on the box, and then he took too much time. So yes, I can defend my tweet after the Wolverhampton game, and I'll tell you, okay, you are now the 250,000th reply that I've had on that tweet, because there was a lot of other Arsenal fans and Manchester United fans that don't fancy Florian Wirtz, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, we did bring up some of those responses, remember, the night, Jan, but there's been a response here in studio from Craig to what you had to say.
I just think he's been disappointing, very disappointing. I mean, you cannot justify anything against Wolverhampton Wanderers, who at the time had 2 points. I mean, we have our colleague here, Jan Agafiotov, was beaten in a race with a man dressed as a fish. And I think he could still score against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So
I love Florian Wirtz. I'm sorry, I love him. He's my favourite player.
No, but I get
sorry, I'm biased. I'm biased.
No, it's you guys that cover German football. You just can't let it go. Anybody that comes in from Germany. Florian Wirtz is a terrific player.
We were all excited about him, watching him for Leverkusen every week, weren't we?
I liken it in a sense. There's been others. Do you remember Antoine Griezmann makes this move to Barcelona? He's going to be the best. Him and Messi. It doesn't quite work out. He's not terrible, but doesn't quite work out. They're not a good fit. Philippe Coutinho at Liverpool was terrific. When he came from Inter, everybody thought, well, Inter, they're selling him. He was brilliant at Liverpool. Hence the reason Barcelona paid a fortune for him. And he was terrible at Barcelona because it wasn't a good fit. So what Florian Wirtz did at Leverkusen is what he did at Leverkusen. And it was brilliant. And he is a brilliant player. But we have to judge thus far, and it's only thus far, what he has been for Liverpool. And as 150 million plus player dollars, he's been, if I'm saying he's been average, that's, he's been dropped out the team. They don't know where to play him. He is weak in possession. He scored against Wolves, but he hasn't really taken a game and done stuff that gets the fans off their seat and go, wow, my God, we haven't seen anything from him. And I keep going back to this. What he does for Germany and what he did for Leverkusen matters not a jot in the eyes of Liverpool fans or Arne Slot, who, by the way,
don't you think
is under pressure.
But Craig, yes, I see your point, and he can't do anything with his price and his fee. But if you take the whole Liverpool team, how many? Soboslai?
No, but that's a soft argument.
No, it's just an argument. I will end my argument, and I think that you're right. He's been a disappointment because but anyway, it's hard when you get into that team. This is a young kid coming from Germany, more or less coming from his mum's and dad's house, going into. So I see your point. Absolutely, and that's why I've been impressed with Ekitike, because he's gone into the same team and taken his position, and Florian Wirtz hasn't. So I take that point. So I know I need a very good lawyer to defend my tweet.
At no point will I sit here ever and say Florian Wirtz is not a good player. He's a terrific player. Him and Musiala in Germany, and Leonard Carroll we're seeing coming through at Bayern Munich, and there are probably others. At no point am I even suggesting that, but we have to take it at face value. At the moment in time, we have to take it for the first half of the season. Thus far, has been a big. Now you can look at, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk, but they've all done it for Liverpool. They've all been there. They've done it for Liverpool. They've done it at that club. The supporters that turn up know what they can do. Even when they play badly, they know what they can do. At the moment, the Liverpool fans, they don't know what Florian Wirtz can do because they haven't seen it.
Robbo, you've obviously seen it. You saw him playing in Germany. You saw him for Leverkusen. Now you're seeing him for Liverpool. What's your take on the situation?
Well, Liverpool have always been, over the last few years, when they've been successful, a high-intensity team, people running in behind, Salah not coming back and then making those forward runs, playing at high pace, what did he, rock and roll football, as Klopp used to call it, and they did it a bit under Arne Slot. What they had a problem was when teams dropped deep and it was too tight in the box and they wanted somebody to open up defences and be clever in and around the box. That's why they bought Florian Wirtz to do those things, when it was tight, to play little 1-2s, dribble past people, get his little shots away, which he did on many, many occasions for Bayer Leverkusen. Go and find space out wide at times and make little runs there. He hasn't done it for Liverpool. He looks, Jan said it, at times he's been caught on the ball. He's not aware of what's around him, so he's obviously, I think, playing with a complete lack of confidence, because that's what happens when you're lacking confidence. You don't see what's going on around you. And he's just lost that ability to go past people really well, and he's just not controlling games as he did for Bayer Leverkusen. He's got to get it right soon, otherwise it's going to be a real flop for him.
No, Jan and I could have discussed this over 10 pints of Guinness in a Nottingham pub.
Yep.
But
sliding doors, Jan.
I tried to call Robin Hood and he was not home, and then I didn't have any more on the list.
Well, the Sheriff of Nottingham was looking for you. But on a bigger note, Arne Slot coming up to the second half of the season, hasn't got the answers thus far. Everything he did last year, pretty much, got his team selection good, certainly domestically, not so much in Europe and one or two of the cup competitions. He went out at Plymouth, he made some big changes. I think that was a mistake. But in the Premier League, he pretty much got it spot on, even when he was making substitutions. This year he's lost. He's just, whether it's just because of the form of some of the players or whatever it is, and injuries or new signings, whatever, but he's lost. And he hasn't got any type of answer to it. And I think that's when you saw the graphic. I mean, Liverpool may win the game, but I think that tells you the story at the moment, that the best at the moment, I've got them as a draw. The other guys have got...
And that's when you find out... And that's when you find out how good a coach somebody is. Not when they're winning games, when they're losing games, and suddenly you've got to try and change it. You've got to make decisions. And at the moment, as you just said, Arne Slot isn't making the right decision or doesn't seem able to get Liverpool to change their ways. They're struggling at the moment. I
mean, I go back to a little earlier in the season, and Jan mentioned Ekitike, and that was one of the head scratchers early. And we're talking about big decisions. It was early in the season, and we know Ekitike started the season really well. But we also know that Alexander Isak was also a big transfer. But it was a difficult transfer. It was drawn out and there was fitness issues. But yet, for some reason, Arne Slot was desperate to get Alexander Isak, an unfit, not very sharp Alexander Isak, into the team, ahead of a guy who was putting his hand up from the Community Shield onwards, and Hugo Ekitike saying, hey, I'm not fazed by coming into this football club. I can score goals, I can link the play, I can come short, I can run the channels. And yet, Arne Slot, we're talking about big decisions. His couple of these big decisions at the start of the season, Chelsea away was one of them, and that's where it started, was Alexander Isak into the team. And then you have a front line with two players out of form, Alexander Isak and Mo Salah at the time. So these big decisions for Liverpool that he's making or he's made so far this year have not gone very well.
But it's I think it is note to, when we talked about the title battle, is note to both of them to see what happened to Liverpool last season when they were struggling. They had a Salah who could make that 1-0 goal, could make that match-winning goal. You have a striker, you have a goal-getter, have a great season. At the beginning of the season, they somehow got some results, Liverpool this season. But I think that's going to be very decisive now at the second half of the season, how they can get Salah back in business. Because if not, it could be a very sad season for Liverpool.
So none of our boys tonight have gone in favour of Liverpool. I wonder what their thoughts are on Manchester United, who'll be facing Leeds at Elland Road in the early game on Sunday. Craig and Stuart are both saying a draw. Jan Agafiosov sees Leeds beating Manchester United 2-0. Jan?
Yeah, this is a big game. I mean, I'm a bit older, and I know that Leeds United against Manchester United, that was the big one. I was crying in middle of the 70s when they sold Joe Jordan, Gordon McQueen to Manchester United. For you know what I'm saying. And this, I saw Leeds United the last month, good organised. We would have said 4 or 5 weeks ago they would be struggling. Now they kind of find a momentum. I think it's a fantastic, good timing for them to get Manchester United at Elland Road. I mean, they even saved some of the best players at Anfield to make sure that they win at home against Manchester United. That's why my tip is 2-0 Leeds.
Yeah, they are going to be missing Ampadu, suspension, but he's been a tidy player for them. But Jan's right, Daniel Farke, they're starting to get a bit of confidence. They'll probably play Calvert-Lewin and Okafor because Man United are pretty weak at the back. They have some injuries, they have players away. And being at Elland Road, and I think they showed this against Liverpool, that crowd can really push this Leeds team forward. And I think there is a belief now in Yorkshire that this Leeds team can stay up. I mean, they're in a decent position. They've got a few points of a gap, but they're actually playing some decent stuff now. And they've got 2 or 3 players with Mecha as well up front that are physical. They can put balls in the box. If they get crosses in the box for Calvert-Lewin and Okafor, whoever it is, I think they can cause this Man United team a lot of problems, and Ruben Amorim at the moment he just doesn't have the answers. The decisions that he makes. I mean, what's this bring? This light for light centre half changes around the 70-minute mark is just baffling to me. I mean, some of the decisions he makes are just baffling, and I think this is a team low in confidence. I think this is a team that doesn't really believe in the manager, and I think that's the opposite of Leeds. They know what they are, and they're getting better. They're at home. And what did I go for, a draw? I think I went for a draw. Yeah, I could squeeze out a win, but definitely a draw at worst.
Robbo, you went for a draw as well, and obviously with Manchester United, we're seeing missing players, we're seeing decisions like this from Amorim, we're seeing formation changes.
Well, you just put up a team there on the graphic. Does that team frighten you? I watched them in the last game, and although it was a back four, or it said it was a back four, quite often Dalot played quite high on the right-hand side and Shaw tucked in from the left-hand side. They were a back three again, and Dorgu played as a left wing-back. So they're mixing up their formations. But Šeško isn't doing enough as a centre-forward. Zexi, I think got taken off at half-time. Cunha is a good player, but they're missing Mbeumo. He was the player that was making them tick. He was the player that was causing problems to other teams and got Manchester United going again. But with him away, I just don't see where Manchester United win games. They just don't look a very good side. And as Craig said, they don't believe in the manager. The manager's not quite sure what he's doing. Manchester United at the moment aren't a good team.
Yeah, Leeds against Manchester United coming up on Sunday. And more English football on the way right here on ESPN Plus, because we've got the FA Cup third round coming up in early January. Some of the games we've got highlighted here on ESPN2. Everton against Sunderland, 7:15 a.m. on January 10th. Portsmouth hosting Arsenal on January 11th. You can see this whole slate of action, all games available on ESPN Plus. So as we make a return to La Liga, this is how the table is looking right now. Barcelona on top, with Real Madrid 4 points behind them in second right now after 18 games played. And one thing we know for Real Madrid is that Kylian Mbappe will be out of action this weekend. He's got a sprain in his left knee. Word is out that he'll be out for 3 weeks. Alex Kirkland, our Madrid correspondent, joining us now. Stuart Robson still with us. Tell us more, Alex. What's the latest on the Kylian Mbappe injury situation?
Yeah, it's a real worry for Real Madrid, and it's a bit of a mystery exactly how long he'll be out for. You mentioned some reports that it could be up to 3 weeks. We know that he's ruled out for the Betis game this weekend. For the Super Cup, he's not being ruled out definitively. We've been told that he's a serious doubt for that competition. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that he wouldn't travel with the team and they have him there as an option if they need him, if he's able to play some part. But we don't know exactly what the state is of this knee. What we've been told is it's an injury it's the same injury that's been troubling him for a few weeks. You remember he missed the Man City game in the Champions League before Christmas with a slight problem. But after that, he played 3 games in a week against Alaves, against Talavera in the Copa del Rey, and against Sevilla, as he was chasing that club record for goals in a calendar year at the end of the year, matching Cristiano in the end. He's come back after the Christmas break, had this open training session, I think it was on Wednesday, and had this scan, which subsequently revealed this the extent of this problem. But like I say, we're not being told definitively how long he'll be out for. And the big question is the Super Cup, because it's the first trophy of the new year. It's the first sort of big test post-Christmas break for Xabi Alonso and the team, who went into Christmas under so much pressure. And so being without their best player, their top scorer, with a trophy on the line, the first trophy of the season, would be a real blow for Madrid.
Top scorer by some distance as well, by the way.
I suppose, Alex, we've been on this Christmas mini winter break, but I suppose we're on manager watch again, aren't we, with Alonso? It's not going to go away, is it? Even though they beat, it was Sevilla they beat at home, but it wasn't a great performance. They have Betis at the weekend. They have the Copa, Super Copa on Thursday. I'm presuming we're in the exact same position, and he is, Xabi Alonso, that we were before this sort of mini break.
Yeah, this is going to keep hanging over the team until not just results pick up, but performances pick up as well. Because they got those results, as you say, before Christmas, but they still weren't playing particularly well. And as long as this team don't convince, those doubts about Xabi Alonso are going to continue. Now, the Supercopa it's not the most important trophy of the season, but it's a trophy. And if they're going to win it, they're going to have to beat Atletico Madrid in the semis, and then either, most likely Barca, if not Athletic Club, in the final. If they were to go and win that trophy and do so playing pretty well, that would be a big boost for Xabi Alonso, and might convince the club to say, okay, we'll stick with him maybe until the end of the season. If they don't, if they crash out, if they play badly, that's going to ramp up the pressure. So I agree. Nothing has really changed from where we were, when they were losing at home to Celta, when they were losing to City, even with that little winning run before Christmas. It didn't really change the vibes around the team, which has been pretty negative for a while now.
And so with all this hanging over Xabi Alonso, Robbo, the one thing he doesn't want is a player he's relied on so heavily this season, who's been sharing scoring the lion's share of the goals. In Kylian Mbappe, 29 goals and 4 assists from him, and now he's not going to be able to rely on him.
Well, he's been the outstanding player, of course he has. He's been absolutely brilliant. He scores goals out of nothing. He's been enthusiastic, which he wasn't in his first season. He's done most things right. So people like Vinny Jr., people like Rodrigo, who probably weren't Alonso's favourite players a little while ago, have got to step up. Gonzalo Garcia, who did well at the World Club Championship, he's got to go and get win balls in the box when crosses come in. Bellingham's got to make the right sort of runs. He's got to start scoring goals as well. And the midfield players have to dominate games. And Alex is absolutely right at the moment. Real Madrid not only have to win games, they have to win games convincingly and put in great performances for Alonso to be given any credit. And at the moment, when they win games, they do it in a very lethargic manner. And when they don't win, they're in big trouble. So it's Alonso is under pressure all the way through from now to the end of the season.
It was that last game, and correct me if I'm wrong, the final game at the Bernabeu was, the 2-0 win was Sevilla, is that right, Alex?
Yeah.
And I think and Alex was at it, I think part of the problem, even in victory, and Alex touched on this at the time, was performance. And it wasn't just performance 11 against 11. It was the fact that Sevilla were as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than Real Madrid at home with 10 men. It's just not a good sell. It was not a good look. The fact that they were still in the game with a man down and still looked really dangerous and still backed Real Madrid up and still, worked Thibaut Courtois with less men on the field at home. And that aligned to the fact that they'd struggled in the Copa del Rey with the fact that Andre Lunin had to make this late great save to stop the game going to extra time in a match that he had felt the need to start Kylian Mbappe, who was on the score sheet, but that was the risk that they took to start his star man in a game against a lower league team to try and win this game because the pressure was really on. And when you put all that in the melting pot, it's just not a good look. Now, things change second half of the year, but these are this is 5 days, Sunday and Thursday coming up against, two of the better teams in La Liga. And it's sink or swim, I think, for Xabi Alonso. So things could either turn very quickly or they could go very, very sour very quickly, as they already are. And without Kylian Mbappe, you're going to the well in St. Vinicius Jr., as Rob was said, and one or two others who they're not completely on board with you as a coach, and that's a very difficult situation to be in. I'll give you one thing though, and Rob will mention Jude Bellingham's goals. He's looking a little sharp. He looked a little sharper going into the winter break than he did over the previous couple of months. Back on the score sheet, looking dangerous again. So that is a plus point for the manager.
Well, let's get to the first of those games this coming week, Alex. It's against the other side from Sevilla in Betis. How are they going to fare against them?
Yeah, well, if Mbappe is out, then who replaces him is going to be the big question. There are a couple of options. Xabi has been quite happy with Rodrigo in the last few weeks. He's been scoring goals again after getting a long, long time without scoring goals. So do you bring Rodrigo into the middle? He actually prefers playing in the middle, Rodrigo, rather than playing on the right. And do you bring in someone else on the right-hand side? Or do you bring in Gonzalo Garcia, a player who did so well, as Robbo mentioned, at the Club World Cup and hasn't got many chances since? Now, it's worth mentioning that Madrid have played well without Mbappe. We saw it against City. They were pretty good against City, and Mbappe wasn't there. They had some good performances at the Club World Cup. It's going back a bit, but last summer when Mbappe wasn't involved either. So we've seen Alonso perform without Mbappe. Of course they miss him. Of course they miss his goals. But in terms of sort of the team's overall play and structure and stuff, they've often looked maybe a bit more cohesive and coherent without Mbappe on the pitch. So there are ways that you can say, okay, maybe this is an opportunity for the team to start to function even without their best player. But yeah, the big question is who's going to play through the middle. Will it be Rodrigo? Will it be Gonzalo Garcia? It can't be Endrick, of course, but because he's now joined Lyon on loan.
Yeah, now the other team, Barcelona, they also had a bit of a scare when it came to their superstar this weekend coming. A scare for Lamine Yamal, front cover of Sport, talking about it. What was the issue here, Alex? Was it an issue with his fitness or his health?
Yeah, there have been differing reports. Some talk of gastroenteritis, of a stomach bug. I mean, it was New Year's Day, so we've all felt a bit under the weather in the past on New Year's Day, haven't we? I don't know. What we're told is, and Hansi Flick said this today, is that he's fine to to play. There's not going to be an issue. And Lamina's been posting on social media, on Instagram today as well, in the build-up to the derby, saying how much he's looking forward to it. So whatever the issue was in terms of missing training yesterday, he's fine and he's going to play, and that's good news for Barca.
It breaks a toenail. It's on the pages, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they've got to fill those pages every day in Spain. Sports Dailies dedicated pretty much to both Real Madrid and Barcelona. Alex, we'll let you get some rest ahead of a big week ahead for both Real Madrid and Barcelona. We look forward to hearing more from you soon. And be sure to be with us for our Super Copa action. Barcelona against Athletic coming up on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, it's Atletico against Real Madrid. Both games available on ESPN Plus and ESPN 2. Hello and welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. We've got Robbo, we've got Jan, and we've got Craig here in studio with us today. He's surviving. He's doing well.
There's a lot going around, isn't there?
There is a lot going around.
Outside, to be honest.
It really is. Have you guys survived the season without getting any coughs or splutters, Jan?
Well, I've had a great Christmas. I had a chance then to meet Craig, as I have learned that I was very close to him in Nottingham. Happy that I didn't when I listened to his coughing now. But I maybe you heard the show when I was doing a show together with Jules, and we realized that we were sitting in the same building without knowing each other at Windsor. So, yeah, with a beautiful family of Jules.
I mean, it's a bit of a coincidence, Jan, isn't it? You know, we get people, maybe people are avoiding you. I don't know. It's like,
yeah, I met him for breakfast. I didn't see you at breakfast in Nottingham.
No, I was in the pub.
Robbo, you staying healthy?
I've been staying healthy. Jan's not quite telling the truth, because off air he told me that he did know where Craig lived. He could have gone round there, but decided against it.
I was at my son's
He
house.
turned his phone off, he said.
I was at my son's house. It was right, my two lads were at the game, and my wife and my daughter were at the game. I was watching the grandkids, and but I was literally, his house is right on Trent. I mean, I'm looking at the Trent end of Forest Ground. Could literally throw a stone over the river at it, but I didn't.
But let me say, I was at a game in Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest is the most friendly club you can visit. Fantastic football club. And after the game, I was staying there because there was a misunderstanding about my transport. I was staying for a couple of hours up in a boardroom, so I had a great time there. So thank you, Nottingham Forest.
Of course, and it was a very touching week, really, with John.
Yeah, with Robbo. Yeah,
John Robertson died, who was arguably Scottish Nottingham Forest's greatest ever player. So that was he died, I think, on might have been Christmas Day, actually.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a thing there for him. You go back to that era for people that don't know, or slightly older viewers, or a lot older viewers will know, but younger viewers won't know. Nottingham Forest won 2 European Cups, and some of the greatest players. And he was, an unbelievable wide player, but he passed on Christmas Day. So that was quite an emotional thing at Nottingham as well. So it is a very friendly club, not a huge stadium down there in Nottingham, but I think everybody that comes from Nottingham is very friendly.
Yeah, but you know what was good? What was good about it is as well that I know I didn't say anything, Stuart, but what was good about the Nottingham Forest as well? Some of the old legends from that time is walking around in the corridors. There was John McCowan, the legendary captain. There was Franz Clark, Gary Birtles, the great number 9, and so on. So great club. Great club.
Nice stuff. Okay, Craig, if you were in charge at Chelsea, would you have parted ways with Enzo?
I think it was. I think it was mutual, was it not? I don't know. I mean, you can't be dictating or trying to dictate your employment to, billionaire owners and not be getting results, which he hasn't recently. You have to have a real sort of air of authority and irreplaceability. Is that a word?
It is now.
Well done, Kay.
Yeah, I think it is. You can't, you got to make sure you are irreplaceable when you start making demands. And once you start making those demands, and the club, whether you agree the way Chelsea's run or not, and I don't know how they do things, it doesn't look great to me, but it's how they do it, is once you do that, once you show that a sense of you might not be loyal to that club, even though loyalty is a word we band about and there is no real loyalty in football, when the club get a sniff of that, they will go and try and look elsewhere. So when you hear about all the stuff that's coming out, I'm not really surprised, to be honest. It's not. We talked about this in the live show. It's not like it's one of the greatest managers ever and Chelsea couldn't afford to let him go. He's a good coach. He's done a decent job, but you know, wherever they go, they will move on.
But how are they going to get a top manager, Robbo, when we're hearing what we're hearing, that there's all this micromanagement inside and different people telling the manager what they must do?
Well, like the players, they want to buy players at a young age and develop them. I think that's what they want to do with their managers. But the trouble is they're not going to develop them because they sack them after a year or so. Because they don't want a manager who's, and we were talking on the show about Jurgen Klopp. You don't want somebody like Jurgen Klopp, or they don't want somebody like Jurgen Klopp who's going to tell them, no, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm not going to have 5 people tell me what I can do. I'm not going to have the medical department tell me which players I can and which players I can't play. I'm going to pick my own team. So they don't want a manager that's going to challenge them. So they're going to have young, inexperienced managers like Maresca, not so young, but inexperienced. They're going to try and get that sort of manager and develop them and dictate to him what they do. So they're not going to get a top manager at the moment.
Go ahead.
And in the newer history, I mean, it's Thomas Tuchel. Was it 7 games he got? I mean, Thomas Tuchel is not a guy sitting around being told who's going to play. So I think that is going to be it's going to be a new manager that will come in that they can kind of manage. But this is not like Pete Best leaving the Beatles. This is just go on.
Can you see them making Champions League places?
I'll go back to some here, and I don't know how accurate all this is regarding the medical department. But isn't it now? I certainly know Robbo and I have had our fair share. I'm not sure about Jan, but he probably has. But isn't it the medical department's job to inform a manager who's fit and who's not the other way around? Is that, you know?
Well, apparently the report
you're absolutely right.
Minutes as well, minutes that could be played and how long the players could be used for.
Go on, Stuart.
I would always say that the medical you should have a separate medical department. That the player's injured, you go away with the medical department and you have it like a doctor's office, you know, or a proper rehabilitation clinic. They go and get their rehabilitation. Then the department, the medical department, say we've worked him hard. He's now fit to play. You know, we're going to play him in a reserve game, behind closed doors game, and he'll be fit to play next week. But what you can't do is start to say, oh, well, you can't play him in this game, or you can only play 60 minutes in that game, and you can only play 50 minutes in that game, because then you're taking away what the manager wants to do tactically, and he can't get any sort of cohesion. So that's where they go beyond where they should be going.
But it depends how I don't want to labour this because it's kind of something gets a bit tedious, but. It depends how the conversation. There's always 2 sides to the story. It depends how the conversation goes. If a medical department is saying 50 minutes, end of story, or let's just say an hour, end of story, that's it. To a manager, that's very in your face. But if a medical department says, listen, we're recommending that this player's coming back, as Rob said, we've worked him hard, we've done this, and we're worried if he plays any more than this, there could be a recurrence of the injury. That's a different scenario. It depends how a conversation goes.
Yeah, absolutely, but I guess this side there will have at least 2 sides of the stories, because I think we should be aware now that there are so many, and we talked about that in the live show, that there's so many different truths coming out now. I mean, did he talk to Manchester City? Did he talk to Juventus? If so, okay, the fans would say, yeah, just let him go. So there is a lot of spinning now going around, and I think we should be a bit careful which one we believe in.
We didn't have this nonsense in the old days where we had one physio. All right, it wasn't. All right,
Bob Ward, Craig. It was every time the back. He went from Chelsea to Middlesbrough. He was always the back.
Wardy was at Chelsea and in Middlesbrough. Bob, I've got headaches. You're back. Bob, but my toenails fell off. To be fair though, he's not that far off. I don't want to go down this road. Your back and your back is the big bulk of it. But when we had one physio and one master, yeah, it wasn't great in the treatment. You used to queue up for treatment and all that. But we didn't have all this nonsense about who can play and who can't. you just got on with it. There's too many. There's too many chefs in the kitchen now, isn't there?
Kay, I have to tell you. You remember there was an old physio. We came to Middlesbrough. I was a record signing at that time. That was before they exploded with Bambi and Juninho and all that. We had an old physio, and John Henry had a problem with his knee, and he was actually standing like this on the chair, and then he went in like this. Woo! Ooh, and he said he tried to take the energy out of the knees. That was Premier League in the 90s in England.
Ah, love that. Whoa. John Hendry, my favourite. Sorry, Ian. All right.
No problem.
I could tell you a topical story about Leroy Rosina, but I'll leave it till next time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, might need some of those stories.
Well, wait till his son gets the Chelsea job.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. With Liverpool being as bad as they have, they're still sitting on 4th on the table, Robbo. Has the quality of the Premier League dropped significantly this season? What would you attribute it to?
There's lots of sides that aren't playing at their very best, of course. There's lots of sides that are not quite sure what style of football they want to play. There's lots of sides that are passing the ball without penetration, which I don't understand. You know, what's the point in passing the ball to find openings and then going back across the field again? So there's not enough penetration with some of the play. I'm not sure about some of the coaching that's going on. I see some terrible set plays, how to defend set plays. I see some really poor times when teams try and play high offside lines, they get it all wrong. So there's lots of things that are wrong on the football field, but we're also seeing better footballers. You know, players are much better probably than they were 20 years ago in terms of their technical ability. So, you know, and but if you look at the two sides at the top, they're the outstanding sides, and the rest are some way below it. Liverpool aren't playing well enough. Chelsea aren't playing well enough. Newcastle have bad moments and good moments, too inconsistent. There's not enough sides playing at their peak at the moment in the Premier League.
Okay. For you, Craig, who's more likely to finish top 5? Chelsea, Manchester United or Spurs? In fact, I'm going to give it to you all, actually, like you say.
Spurs.
I mean, how about Chelsea? Throw me a mid-table team in. Anyway, Spurs. Oh my God, Man United.
Who's the most likely then?
Chelsea. Oh my God, Spurs. I mean, I think I didn't watch Mourinho and Conte's Spurs. Well, I definitely would. Than watch this current sort of Thomas Frank version, which is just, you know, and he's already said the last few days, I'll win the fans over. Well, we'll wait and see. And Man United, I mean, I wouldn't hang, never mind my hat, I wouldn't hang anything on them. Chelsea are by far and away, regardless of recent results, a much better outfit, much better on the day than any of those two teams. It's not even close.
Does anyone disagree? No? Okay, we'll move on.
Craig's absolutely right. Chelsea on their day are still a decent team. On their day, they're a decent team. The other two at the moment aren't.
If you believe that Pep will see out his contract, Jan, with Man City until the summer of 2027, where do you think Maresca will manage next? Will he wait for a top job in the Premier League to open up, or maybe seek a job in Serie A?
I think this is quite interesting because Manchester City, I mean, up there with the biggest clubs in the world. And when the biggest clubs in the world hire a manager, they will have to try to go for the best, the most experienced one. There were always exceptions. We saw Vincent Kompany coming from Burnley, taking over Bayern Munich. Well, it's worked out very well. When City picked up Guardiola, it was not like they picked him up from an iPad somewhere in Catalana? Help me, Kay.
You can have Catalonia, you can have
yeah, okay. In Spain. And when they didn't pick him, it was a very experienced manager. When Manchester United got Sir Alex Ferguson, he had great success with Aberdeen, winning European Cups and everything. Nowadays, it seems like the biggest jobs in the world will be given to some people to have a good experience of 2 or 3 seasons. I don't think that Maresca will go straight into a Manchester City job. Why should he? I mean, he won the Conference League. Yes, he's a world champion, as they call it. And he was at Leicester. Why should Manchester City go for him? I don't get it. The big jobs need to... I can understand the exceptions with Xavi, Barcelona, because it's a legendary status. Xabi Alonso, Real Madrid. I get it. But all this thing of giving them to young coaches with the biggest jobs, I can't see that. I can't see it.
All right, now obviously Brennan Johnson's gone to Crystal Palace, so we've got a question in about that. Considering Brennan Johnson was Spurs' top scorer last season and they can't find goals this season, do you think it was wise for Spurs to sell him?
I mean, I haven't seen all the games. I know he's had his problems. I know he has certainly divided opinion, maybe not even divided opinion among some of their fan base. And he seemed to me a pretty easy target at times, Brennan Johnson, but he did. You know, he offered what he offered, and he did, as you say, score goals. So, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm not paying that much attention, as much attention to Spurs as I am to others at the moment, because they're really, I mean, if I can avoid watching Tottenham, then I do. That's how, I mean, unless they're playing a game that needs to be watched.
I'd ask Craig, just asking Craig, you watched him at Nottingham Forest, I presume, Brennan Johnson.
A little bit, yeah.
He always played up front for them. Yeah, he played up front for them, didn't he?
Yeah.
Ever since he's been at Spurs, he's played on the right wing, and the position doesn't suit him. Most of his goals have been from crosses coming to the other side. He does what a right winger should do. He comes round the back and keeps it in and scored his goals at the back post. But he's not a right winger. He was a centre forward at Nottingham Forest and did a good job spinning down the channels and receiving the ball with his back to goal. It's a very different thing to have to play out on the right wing when you're playing for not a particularly great side.
Yeah, I think he's been a bit of a scapegoat. If I'm being honest with you, I think he has been a little bit of a scapegoat there, to be quite frank. And maybe for that lad, it's you know, maybe time for him to go out and get away from the sort of vitriol that he you know, he got this online stick last year that was quite. I mean, everybody gets it, to be honest, but he got quite an abusive period, and then he went on this run of scoring every week. But sometimes you can just never appease. So yeah. Is the move finalised to Palace? I know it's like 30 odd million or whatever it is. So, you know, it's an opportunity for him to go and get away. And Spurs at the moment are a club that are not really going anywhere, are they?
Yes.
I think it's a brilliant signing. Brilliant signing of Crystal Palace. I think that Oliver Glasner will get him going again, get him in his position. I think this could be one of the better signings in this transfer window.
Well, he'll probably get a little bit more love at Crystal Palace than he was at Tottenham, and I think that'll help him, Jan, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And some of us, we need that. Even Robbo.
All right, we're going to end it
we all
there.
need love.
Where
We
is
all
the love?
need love of some sort.
Where is the love?
Love.
Yep, okay. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. We love you all. Join us tomorrow on ESPN FC.